Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm David Novak. I've really come to a decision on reading Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago, Volume 3, which I began yesterday, and I've decided that aiming for speed is the right course to take with this book, which may well be longer than the previous two volumes. And I've been thinking about that decision in conjunction with Stephen Runciman's Crusades history, which I just finished. And, Steve Donahue, the booktuber, is a big advocate of eliminating subvocalization when you read. You can cover a lot more ground quicker if you're not trying to pronounce the words out silently to yourself as you read them. Now, in the last year and a half, as I've been trying to improve my reading abilities, I have not been aiming for speed. That's not really been a big goal of mine. I've found that I've increased my reading cumulatively just by allotting time for it, and that's served me very well. But I think for the remainder of the Gulag Archipelago, trying to focus on speed is a reasonable choice. The reason for that is in contrast with Stephen Runciman's book. Now, Stephen Runciman's books, three of them actually, the history of the Crusades. For one thing, the prose is, the very last, the epilogue of the Kingdom of Acre, the last book, I thought to myself that the book was impossibly eloquent, or the epilogue. That was the word that popped into my head. Well, Solzhenitsyn, at least in the English translation that I have, is not impossibly eloquent. It's not even near eloquent. It's just, shamblingly okay. So there's that. And then the other point of contrast, I would say, is that with Runciman, there's a lot of thought that you're trying to absorb and conceptualize. You're trying to conceptualize this whole missing world. In Solzhenitsyn, there's absolutely none of that. Once you get the basics, you kind of understand the whole situation he's describing, and then he likes to sort of pile on examples. So at the part where I'm at, he's trying to impress upon you, the reader, that the punishments for crime and alleged crime under the czars were nothing compared to what the communists imposed. So, something that would have gotten you shot under Stalin would have gotten you at best a slap on the wrist under the czar, and so he makes that his central point, and then piles on 30 different examples of this. So you don't really need to think heavily about any of it. There's not really any thought involved. And so I've decided that a work like this is exactly the appropriate sort of thing to try to aim for speed. Now, I don't know how well I will do with eliminating subvocalization. I don't even know if I will attempt to do that. And I'm not going to really aim for super speed. I mean, I want to understand the words in the sentences, that's for sure. But because there's no real depth to any of Solzhenitsyn's sentences, I figure that I can achieve that at a faster pace than would be possible with, say, Runciman. I don't think this idea of reading without subvocalization is a good one for all genres. For example, I think if you're trying to read poetry that way, you're probably shooting yourself in the foot, so to speak. Robert Frost has a good essay somewhere talking about the sound of sense, as he called it. And you probably need the sound when you're reading poetry. And I would say, for somebody, at least with my difficulties in comprehension, when I'm trying to read something like Runciman, going slower is probably to my advantage. But something like Solzhenitsyn, where you're not really trying to understand anything in particular because he's already given you the whole framework, then trying to experiment with how I read is probably not only a worthwhile endeavor, but probably the best occasion for me to work on my overall goal of learning how to read better. So I will just add that as sort of a footnote to the video that I posted yesterday and leave it there. Thank you for stopping by my channel.